All right. We are here today with Navy Corpsman Matthew Bennett. We got a repeat Michael Giuliano, our resident grunt for the night. And today we are on Hard to Kill, and we are, I believe, episode 38. Fucking 38, man. Hooking in a jab and fucking slowly crawling all the way up. I love it. I love how we're spreading the word about Hard to Kill. Matt, fucking thanks for blessing us, man. Fucking tell us a little bit about yourself, buddy.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. My name is Matt. I was with 1st Battalion, 7th Marines as a corpsman. I deployed with them to Afghanistan. I was also with 3rd Battalion, or I'm sorry, 3rd LAR, 3rd Light Armored Reconnaissance, deployed to Japan with them on a UDP
Where,
deployment.
where were you over there? Were you on Schwab or did you go over to?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Schwab, and then yeah, but we got to stay at mainland for a little bit, which was
Oh,
probably
they,
the
they,
the
they got you out of the ghetto,
yeah. We
right?
went to Mount Fuji, just
Woo, Fuji! I love it,
living
dude.
it up. We
Dude,
really
isn't that
did. It was
isn't that
great.
an interesting place out in town, dude? You see
Yeah.
some interesting things, if you will.
No, for sure. The mall there. Yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy,
that
dude.
was cool. Try to be Asian with sleeve tattoos
I love
there.
it. I
It's a
love it.
different experience.
So,
So
Mikey, take us off, brother.
Yeah, so hey Matt, it's good to see you. I
When was
just
the
saw
last
you.
good to
time you
see.
guys saw each other?
It's
I
been years,
yeah, dude, we
years.
maybe 2013, maybe 2014 after
But it
because
was you guys were both in still.
yeah,
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah,
we
we were
served together. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
So yeah, I just contacted, like once you got a hold of me and you asked me to, kind of find some dudes, I started reaching out right away, and it's awesome that I got such positive feedback from guys that are willing to do this. So
Absolutely.
Matt, we're gonna kick it off, baby, with one of my favorite Navy corpsmen. Honestly, great dude. So Matt, where are you from, man? Tell us where you're
So
from.
originally, I am from Washington State. I'm currently living in Virginia, though.
Oh, where
Um,
at? Where at?
Northern Virginia, so right outside like by
Oh,
Quantico,
I stayed in Arlington for a couple of years.
Arlington. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's a little bit farther north than me, but Northern Virginia.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I never been out that way. Maybe when I come to Boston to pay you a visit, I'll take an East Coast trip.
Yeah. No,
You
definitely
know,
come.
yeah. But
Definitely come.
what was life growing up in Washington State? Give us a little background on that.
So I mean, my dad was in the army, so I claim Washington as my home. That's where I graduated high school from. But I lived, I mean, all over the place. But Washington, it is my home, and it was great. I mean, we lakes and mountains, snowboarding, and
What's up?
you know,
You're good. Keep going,
no,
bro.
yeah, yeah, you're good.
So are you like a is it like a military family thing, or were you kind of like a black sheep, joining doing your
No,
own
so
thing?
my dad, my dad was Army, and he retired as a E8 in the Army. I was the black sheep because I probably wasn't gonna join the army. That was or the military and at all. That wasn't ever. I mean,
So
I had long hair. I
was that like
smoked
a
weed in high
shit
school.
talking thing? Army and Marines, him being in the army, you going in the Marines, or was it
Well, I
kind of
went in the Navy.
the Navy? I mean,
The Navy,
that's an
yeah.
arm of the Marines,
So
you know.
true. His whole thing was you're just not allowed to join the army.
Gotcha,
That was his thing. I did a little backdoor move joining the Navy with the kind of with the intent of going with the Marines. So
gotcha.
So it was like a little bit of a F you dad type of thing, or because
yeah.
he didn't want you to go. So yeah, give us like when that like how that kind of like came about, like what was your decision? Like what ultimately made you decide to join the Navy? And then how did your family view that when you broke that news to them?
Oh man. All right. So I wish I had like a story like I wanted to go greater cause, serve the country kind of thing, but I so I'm in detention, right, in high school, and you're able to get out of detention if you talk to a military recruiter. Some the detention teacher that was from my high school, like he was a prior service Army Green Beret or some shit like that, and he would let if you talk to the recruiter, you talk to them, and then you can just basically dip and go home. So me, I was a senior, and I talked to the recruiters to get out of fucking detention, and the Navy recruiter, he just said the right things to me that kind of I was a senior and I literally had no plans after high school. So it kind of just lined up with, maybe this is a good idea. Let me get out of, you know,
Now,
do
did you
something, right?
Did your recruiter saying anything about like cowboy butts driving him nuts? Was that like something that you related to that wanted you to join the
Exactly.
Navy?
Yep.
Okay.
He was like, you
I've,
can be a
yeah.
seaman, and I was like, sold. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I'm done. Good. You
Oh,
got me.
that's my somebody gets it, right? Exactly.
All right, so you make the decision. You got out of detention. The Navy kind of just appealed to you. It
Yeah.
was Corman, was that your choice? Did he sell
Corman was
you? I
my
mean,
choice. No, yeah,
okay.
Corman was my choice. That's really what clicked. I always had a kind of a fascination with medical, maybe
Yeah.
becoming a nurse or something like that. So when he explained the jobs of a corpsman and just how that they were the ones that actually were with the Marines, I mean, that kind of gave me that purpose of like, okay, that's something that I would be interested in doing, right?
So you were kind of already thinking about what you were gonna do when you get out, kind of online in it. With that's smart. I wish I did that, honestly. Kind of setting yourself up for when you get out,
Yeah,
but it's
but
badass, man.
I mean, kind of, right?
All right, so you make the decision to do Navy. You want to be a corpsman. When you told your dad, or like your family in general, what was the feedback that you were getting?
No, my dad was excited because he knew that I wasn't on any good path, right? I wasn't gonna go to college or anything. So he was about it, especially him being from the army. He knew that the benefits that it could give a young man. So he was excited. My mom, she definitely wasn't excited with Iraq going on. She was very against it, but she didn't really have that much say. So
Yeah, I got you. Now, what year was it that you
joined in
ultimately went to boot camp?
2008, 2008.
Okay, so you go
Yep,
to
2008.
Great Lakes for boot camp, right?
Yep, Great Lakes, Chicago, right outside Chicago. Go in September of 2008, and I graduate, I think, in like January,
Okay.
December.
And was that your first taste of Chicago? Like, I mean, I guess it's really not even Chicago, but
Yeah.
is that the first time you traveled like to a new place before?
No, no, because my dad was in the military, so we
Oh,
did
that's
travel
that's right.
around. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we did travel around, but it was my first time, out on my own in a new city. So it's definitely very intimidating to do that. And
Gotcha.
I mean, something that sticks out to me about it was, I mean, they catch you at the airport. They don't even like the drill instructors or whatever. I mean, they catch you at the airport and
Oh
they're
yeah.
like waiting for you. And I wasn't expecting that. So I'm getting off the plane with my manila folder and they're catching me. And I mean, that was my first experience outside of my home, right? So
Yeah, that's pretty wild too. I mean, as a young man, and then you're like immersed into this environment. I think most people can understand what boot camps like. But
yeah.
just to cover something like give us one like like a
Yeah, something
funny
that
ass
sticks out
story.
to you.
Yeah, something from boot camp that really
You
stuck
always
with you.
remember those ones or twos, dude. Preferably something about you getting slayed.
God, man. No, so nothing. To be honest, boot camp sucked. I went to Navy boot camp. Navy boot
Yeah.
camp is probably nothing like Marine Corps boot camp. Nothing like it's very. I mean, it's
How long was it?
soft. I honestly don't remember.
Like two,
Three
probably two,
months.
two,
I think it
three.
was 3 months. Yeah,
Gotcha.
about 3 months. Um, I know that my A school was about 6 months. Core school was about 6 months, but I think boot camp's like three. But no, I mean it really wasn't bad. The first couple weeks were horrible. I remember hearing dudes crying in bed, which I thought was. I remember thinking like they're really like there's dudes crying right now. Um, I don't know.
It's funny
I
because
rem-
like people from all over the world kind of
all over
that's
the world.
that's your first time like seeing people from all over and realizing not everyone's just like you.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you gonna admit to us that you were one of those dudes that was crying?
No, no, I'm not gonna admit it. You know what I mean?
It's all right, buddy.
All right. So what was once you got to core school, what was that change? Did you see a change from like, going to Navy boot camp and you're getting out this
No.
fresh seaman, and you standing a little bit taller and then they
Can't
send you
just
to
say
core
fresh
school.
semen, dude.
Semen.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
He's
fresh,
going to
just
you. He's gonna keep using that word this entire interview, and it's okay. I like it. No, core school was also it was I don't know. Core school was it was a good time. Um, that's the first experience I had with outside of the house in a new city with some like freedoms that from your parent. I mean, with females, right? So it was a little bit different experience for school with that
Oh,
aspect.
so so there was, oh, that's right. So there's females in there.
There's
Gotcha.
females in court school, yeah. So now boot camp was all males, and then graduate, boom, now you're in core school.
Would you say it's like 50-50 or like 60?
No,
Oh,
nothing
okay.
in the military is 50
Yeah,
50.
it's
That's,
true. It's true. It's true.
I mean,
Valid
there's
point.
probably like 90-10, which is a
Gotcha.
good ratio for the military.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. So so you said it was about 6 months and then
Yeah.
you hit the fleet. So after like A school into like the fleet, is that like a kind of like a big culture shock or is it kind of similar?
It's all first experiences, right? It's all first. So you have no idea what you're doing.
Gotcha.
You're a boot. I, and as a corpsman, sometimes we go on a different track. So I went to the hospital first. My first duty station was at Naval Medical Center, Portsmouth in Virginia. I went to Camp Lejeune before that, to do field FMTV, to train to be with the Marines, or doing that class. And then I went to the hospital where I got fat, honestly. But I spent 2 years at the hospital, which was it was fun. I got to actually work with patients in like an inpatient medical surgical ward. um, but I always wanted to go with the Marines. I mean, that's why I joined. So I, that's kind of what it all was leading up to. Got up for orders, and then I had a choice between Lejeune and 29 Palms. I picked 29 Palms because when I was in Camp Lejeune, that place was horrible.
So this is
Absolute the
probably
fucking
like
worst place.
2011-ish.
Yeah, it was about 2011. So I
So
got to 29 Palms in 2011.
gotcha.
June.
So at that point, are you hearing like the whispers of war? You know, Afghanistan's heating up at that point. I mean, you
Yeah,
guys are
no. So Afghanistan's definitely heating up. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to go to an infantry unit, because of that, right? I sitting at the hospital for 2 years, I saw a lot of the guys coming back from the deployments, with their cars, with their shiny FMF pens, and that was the goal. That was what
that's the
everything.
motivation right
Yeah,
there,
that
right?
was the motivation. Was I looked up to them. Those were, exactly what I wanted to be. So the first chance I
So
got, I went.
yeah, real quick, Matt, let me ask you, when you were at the hospital, were you involved in any like did you get to partake in surgery or get to stand in for like some?
No, no,
No, no. Okay.
no,
Okay. I
nope.
didn't know if that's something that you had a little bit of prior experience to like
No.
triaging casualties or something, or
So
like patients.
no, it was I was on a unit that did hip and knee replacements mostly for
Okay.
retirees. So
So you got to rub down a lot of old men while you were in
exactly, I
that
wiped
position.
butts.
Okay.
I wiped
Okay.
butts and I gave IVs for, yeah,
Nice.
for the most part.
Well, so after you were done wiping butts and giving IVs, did you said you selected 29 Palms, California. Did you know that you were going to be going to 17?
No,
Okay,
I knew
so that
I
would
knew I was going to be going to 7th Marines.
okay, all right. So like, give us like that transition, give me like the first day and then like how you were received, like, once you got to 17.
All right, so I checked in when I got to 29 Palms to 7th Marine Regiment, um, and they had no idea what to do with me because I just walked up to whoever was on duty that day and no idea. So they sent me to 311's BAS.
Like artillery battery, right?
Yeah, for 7th
Yeah,
Marine Regiment. So
yeah.
they sent me there, and I actually worked at 311's BAS for 4 days, I think, before somebody from NAVFIRS came and got me and told me that I was in the wrong spot. So then they walked me over to 17's BAS. Um, and here I am. I'm fat. I don't have a haircut because I'm coming from the hospital. And I'm walking into 17's BAS, and they're like, "Here's your foreman. He was at 311's BAS for the last like week or something." So I came in kind of rough. I mean, they they already thought of me. I mean, I was pretty much a shitbag walking in because I had no idea what I literally and I thought I did. I mean, I thought I knew what I was doing, but obviously I didn't, and I was getting checked really fast. They
Yeah.
sent me right then and there. They sent me to the PX and they made me get a haircut. before I came
Yeah.
back. Yeah.
Yeah, all you fucking corpsmen think that you can just have this like shaggy ass fucking low ass rag, you know,
Facts.
you're
It's
like,
because we
yeah,
Facts.
you're
can.
just
Because
it's
we
like, well,
can.
I'm in the Navy, I have different standards because I like dudes more than you like dudes. It's like, okay, we get it,
This
all
guy
right.
is so fucking jealous, man.
I am, all right. I am. I wish that I got that experience that you did, dude. You know?
So when did you start getting you know, training on weapon systems? When did you start getting comfortable
All right,
behind?
so they put me when I got to 17, they put me in Baker Company. And then I went to my, platoon, my squad. And I was a boot. Uh I got my SIF gear, and I think the next day after my SIF issue, we were going out to the field. Um and I mean I don't know how to pack gear at this point either. So my gear is I'm a gear bomb. The shit's out of control. I pack everything my SIF issue on this hike. Like, and I don't
Bad
know if you
move.
know, like it's a horrible move, but and I have
Bad
no idea
move.
what I'm doing. And we start the hike and I fall out.
Oh, you're
Obviously,
dying.
within like 2 miles, I'm falling out. So God, I'm a corpsman, and I just fell on my first hike with my Marines. Literally, I'm a big piece of shit, man. In the beginning, I was, but I
That's
tightened
how
up.
you learn, brother.
That's how you learn. And we were out in the field. I mean, immediately I started integrating with the unit. They started teaching me things, and making me better. But um, I stood a lot of Firewatch in the beginning. I mean, I definitely had to earn their trust back and their respects, right? That was
Do you
something that
have
they
anyone in particular that sticks out to you that I don't
in
know?
the beginning, Sergeant Falcon, and I'll say his name. I hope he
Great
watches this
last
one
name,
day.
dude. Great
He's
last
a
name.
he's a dick, bro. He
So
had a belief that boots weren't people, and like full belief
great belief.
boots aren't people, and he
No.
didn't treat you like a person.
I mean, do you hold angst to get him for that against them for that, or I mean, do you think it kind of
No, I mean
made?
he just was my first experience of that mindset, and
Gotcha,
I was very scared of him. I was
gotcha.
terrified. Yeah,
Like, would you say that
Sergeant
that
fucking
was your
Falcon.
was Sergeant Falcon like your image of what a Marine, like the epitome of a Marine? Like, would you look at
Yeah,
him and you're like, that's a fucking warfighter right there?
he was a warfighter even back then, and I'm sure he went MARSOC, I think.
I think guys like that are really pivotal for young people coming into the military because they really need that person to kind of push them.
It set the tone, right? I
Absolutely.
mean that was my he's setting the tone day one. I mean, and
Well, when
and
you oh,
go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. I was just gonna say, with you being a boot corpsman, like was Sergeant Falcon, like, not only was he giving you knowledge like in your own trade craft, you know what I'm saying? Like, was he able to like
No,
teach? No?
no,
Okay.
no. This is Sergeant Falcon he is an important character. I feel like in my military because he was such a douchebag and I hated him, because of he was just a very scary sergeant, right? But he was the epitome of a Marine because he was perfect with his sleeves, he was perfect hair, he was in immaculate shape, and he would just slay bodies every day, right? And that's why I hate him is just because of that. But he also sets a tone of like I know Marines that now that are still in to this day that are also like Sergeant Falcon, and they do keep the tradition going, right? Of
Nice.
what it means. So I
Mike,
have respect for him, but I
Mike,
hate him.
are you used to dealing with that like from where you're at out in LAR? Like, is that something that gets harped on heavy in a line? Company shaves, doing
Oh,
the right thing as a Marine, or is
what
it kind of I don't know. I
yeah,
mean,
I think,
Go
I
ahead.
mean, I haven't seen any, like when I was a fucking boot dude, it was shave your fucking
His
head, shave
head,
your fucking face, like your everyday PT like 05, you're going on some type of run, or when you used to be able to put a plate carrier on and go do like boots and utes with a plate carrier. Like, yes, like staying in shape, being physically fit, ground fighting, like it wasn't
ground
like
fighting. Yeah.
MMA. We were just grappling and throwing each
yep.
other around, like trying like all that shit, like to be, like a fucking killer, that enabling. That's where, like mine was Sergeant Edmonds. We talked about him previously, like he was that guy that always had his shit together. His knowledge was on point, and he slayed the fuck out of you in PT, So I think that everybody, or most people have an influential character like that in their lives. And Matt, obviously, Sergeant Falcon is that guy for you.
So all right, so we're finally getting to a line company. You're getting with your Marines who you're going to be with. When does Afghanistan start coming into the picture?
So when I got to 29, we were already in the workup, so we knew we were going during, I mean, all of those first months. But we deploy in March 2012 to Afghanistan. We go to Sangin, in Helmand province, from March to November.
Do you remember who you were relieving when you went over there?
3-7,
37. Okay.
3-7.
Uh, so really, really kind of articulate what it's like coming into saying. Now let's now whoever's not military who's watching this during this time, Sangin is that motherfucking place. Shit is popping off. The Taliban's making a stand right there. Now, to say that, you really need to understand what the Taliban making a stand means. These guys, as Mike, we talked about it. These guys are in robes. There's no body armor. They got 20-year-old AKs, and they're adjusting their TTPs to be effective against the American Marine war machine. And they're banging it out with us, man. Now, from what I heard, IEDs were being used right to really break down the flow of Marines pushing forward through the city, and to really boost up complex ambushes to be effective against us. So now, from what I was told, where I was at, we were in Marge at the time, but I think it was 3-5 that became combat ineffective out there.
Yeah, that was in 2010,
Yep.
2011.
Okay. So tell us what you know about that, Doc.
Um, no, I mean Sangin was banging. We got there. The man, I think it was 3-7 that we were relieved, and now I'm not totally sure, but I think it was 3-7. But they were there for the winter months, and they had a very uneventful deployment. So they didn't really see combat. I think they got a blanket car while they were there for, some IDF or something that they got, but they really didn't see shit. So we
Blanket
were kind
car.
of, yeah, so we were kind of like, really? Like, all right, maybe we're not going to see the action that we thought. Maybe we missed the war. Um, and that was something that, we were super, to be honest, we were really pumped about being
Of
in
course.
Sangin, right? My platoon got picked to actually have our own PB as well. So we were off away from the company doing our own
So
thing.
now, when you say you had your own PB, are you guys with ANA, AHP, or
No, it
is
was
it
just
just
us,
just Dolly, just you
just
guys?
us. Yep,
Okay.
we're on a little Spartan base, in the middle of the fish tank is what we called it, in Sangin. So, um, but yeah, no, it was about a week before we started seeing contacts after we got there. So it wasn't gonna. It was, at that point we were excited. We're like, we got contacts, right? Um, it's not
Now, are
gonna be
you
a
going
quiet
on like a
deployment.
couple mounted patrol? I mean, dismounted patrols a
That's
day?
all. Yeah, all foot patrols. I would go on at least one. We had 3 corpsmen in our platoon, so we had 4 squads and 3 corpsmen. So we normally split up that last squad between us. Whoever wasn't patrolling would go with them. So,
Okay.
so at least one a day.
So
Um,
go ahead.
Well, before
no, no, go
that,
ahead.
before you went into Afghan, I wanted to know like what was your mindset as the platoon corpsman, right, or one of them, and then were you getting like what do you think the training that you were getting as a corpsman was effective enough to, obviously we're going to get into your experience, but how was that training that you got before deployment? How did that prepare you to what you got into over there?
So training before deployment, I felt good. I felt good before we deployed. I mean, I felt like I got to the point with my guys that they trust me. I got physically fit. That we got to do some really cool training with like the live pig training, which was honestly excellent and helped a lot with just the initial shock of seeing trauma like that, right? Um, but I felt good. I mean, we had the basics. We knew tourniquets. We knew we had them. We knew fluid. So really I felt very prepared for this to happen, mentally and just prepared, right?
Okay, good,
Yeah.
good.
Now supplies was a different story. We didn't really have that many supplies. we definitely, I mean, we stole a bunch of supplies when we were on Leatherneck, from one of like the aid stations there. But so we were, yeah,
So
supplies.
you guys went in like in country unprepared with your medical gear. Like obviously every Marine, like, initially you think that one tourniquet per Marine is gonna like do the
Do
job,
something, right?
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And but so that right there just shows like you guys go in, especially in the Marine Corps. I've heard Army medics talk about like, an Army units with the gear that they get and the funding
Yeah.
that they have is a little better. So in the Marine Corps, you can see that you guys go in there underprepared in the sense of the equipment and the gear that you have, but it seems like you were able to adapt and improvise and make everything work out.
Yeah. I mean,
It's funny. I find it
stealing
funny this.
shit is
I
kind
find
of,
it the funny the setup that you have like right when you get into country, and then like how everyone looks at you, kind of like a gear queer because you have all your shit on, strapped up, ready like invade Poland or however you want to put it. And then once you get to like your PB and you start going on a couple patrols, you start, figuring out the area and realizing how you can combine mobility with also having everything that you need where you need it.
yeah.
But I mean, at what point do you think you realized that, I don't know, singing was singing, you were gonna, what you would see on a day-to-day basis was your, I don't know, was your
It
norm
was
over there?
it was within 2 weeks of being there. We were on a patrol and we were at first sergeant on this patrol. He came out with us for the company first sergeant. So we got into a L-shaped ambush that day, and it was again the first time that we saw contact like this. It was probably a week, less than a weekend, maybe 10 days, something like that. But we got into an L-shaped, and we got to experience it like a real firefight. I mean, I saw for the first time like the saw gunner just laying good fire on people, and just knowing that people are doing their jobs and that it's working, right? We were communicating and we felt good, but it also was very eye-opening because, like I said, we saw contact for the first time and it was real. And just I remember seeing my first sergeant just being in a completely different mindset from that day on, even about, just before he was very uptight, and after I felt like he just had a mindset shift. So,
And with
but yeah,
that mindset shift, was that for the better in the sense
for the
of like,
better.
yeah, because most first sergeants, like a lot of guys will say like they're very uptight and all about regulations, and like some I've heard stories of people getting NJP'd for wearing
Oh my
white fucking
God.
socks and things
Yeah,
like that.
that
And
was
that's the
him
kind of, yep. So
until that point, and I'm glad that it happened in the beginning, because after that point, he really was an advocate for us. So I mean, he was a great first sergeant. Before deployment, I hated him. He was horrible. He would have NJP'd you for less. But I
yeah,
think after he saw like what combat is, because he was an air wing first sergeant as well, so he came from the wing. I mean,
That was a great point to bring up actually, because I feel like that's something common you see. Guys like that, staff NCOs, they tend to be sticklers on things like that for no reason. Maybe they think that they're doing their job, that's what they need to do, or that's just something the Marine Corps is. But once combat starts becoming combat, you start seeing those things, I don't know, push off a little bit or fade off, and it really start. I feel like it brings the team together a little bit more.
yeah, definitely.
I don't know how you guys feel about that, but
no, I agree. I mean, I wanted to ask you, Matt, like you get off to a pretty heavy kinetic environment and your op tempo starts picking up at 2 weeks into the deployment, like is that the case for the next 6 months while you're there, or did you guys have a lull in certain areas, and how did that affect your guys's are you constantly on it, or is there like a downshift at some point?
No, there really wasn't. There'd be times where, I mean, we would go days or maybe a week without seeing contacts, but that would just be like my squad. One of the other squads definitely would see contact during that time. So there wasn't necessarily a break within the fighting. There just was a break because maybe, they would attack one squad a day kind of thing. and my squad just wasn't it that day.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
what was like the civilian population like in your area?
They were sheds. I hated them, bro. They were horrible. Um, there was a couple good ones. It was very populated. So we were in the fish tank, like I called it earlier, which was a very populated area in the brown zone across the street of, I think it was 611, the paved road that runs through there was the green zone, which is all farmland, right against the Helmand River. So we were in the fish tank. So it was very populated, tight, narrow alleyways, all mud hut houses, and um, I mean, they were all bad to be in my eyes for the most part.
Something that amazed me about mud huts, dude, is how well they stood up against
Oh, great
rounds,
cover.
dude.
Yeah, they
You know
were
what I mean?
bulletproof. I don't know what
Well,
they built them
how
with,
is
but
that? Is it just
I
because the
don't
sun
know.
bakes them?
No,
I
it's
mean,
the years and years of packing it and,
With
putting
straw
it,
and mud, right?
yeah,
yeah, yeah, over and over and over, and that shit's like thicker than concrete, dude.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure people will tell you if they've, like 40 Mike looks like a fucking scratch on the wall, when you try to put rounds onto the side of a compound or a building.
yep, definitely. I've literally seen rounds skip off mud huts before, dude. It's nuts. It's funny.
So
Go ahead.
I was just saying, so Matt, like if if what's one um hard, like something that happened on deployment, like while you're there that really stuck with you, and from that, like how did you guys as a platoon and you individually get through that hard time?
Um, I mean, we had a couple hard times. So we had within my platoon we had a double amp Jed,
Oh
right?
shit.
So that was a hard time. We had a couple gunshot wounds. And anytime somebody gets hurt, it's a hard time. Definitely. We
Right.
fortunately didn't, I mean, we didn't lose anybody during deployment. So um, we always were blessed with that. But we always the military is great because you build such a bond with these guys. And during those times, I mean, you had so many people there that all were feeling the same thing, that all were living the trauma at that time, like with you and live. So you have people to rely on, and I mean, it just brings you guys so close, right?
Sure.
And I think that's how anybody gets through it, is the exact same way.
That's a
So
deep one.
like, yeah, that is a big one, like being able to rely on the boys like while you're there and having
Hell
those
yeah.
guys that go through those experiences with you. Because I feel like after, whatever, we'll get to this, but after you get out, like you lose that bond you've built, and it's just crazy how in a flash of an eye that's gone, like after
Gone, yeah.
deployment. Yeah. Like, after that deployment, um like how was it that you were um coping with trauma, or have you even started to feel those effects? Are you still in that like days of like not really understanding how you're getting through this?
No, so all right, I deployed to Afghanistan. I got back. Um, I had a choice to re-enlist or get out, and I re-enlisted. Kind of got shafted with it because they sent me to third LAR. Because I originally re-enlisted to deploy again with 17, but then they sent me to third LAR. So, third LAR, it was, not, to me, it wasn't a grunt unit, so it wasn't a real infantry unit, especially coming from, the deployment that I did. I had so much pride in the fact that I had done it, right? So get sent there and I'm in Japan. um and prior to even going to Japan, I actually started going to see deployment health because I was having anxiety and I was sweating. Man, I would have pits
That's a good
stains like
one.
in my camis, and I remember having like that anxious feeling, but not really understanding what it was, but definitely knowing that I'm sweating and I'm pitting out my camis every day, right?
Was that something new for you that you hadn't
That
like felt
totally
before?
new, totally new. So I, started going to deployment health, but they clear me to go to Japan. They say you're fine, you can go to Japan, you're good. Um, And Japan, honestly, I think is where I really started to go downhill with a lot of the issues that I never really got to process or deal with from deployment. So, because I,
Well, what about, like obviously you've gone to you're getting ready to go Japan, or you go to Japan. Um, you know, what about that separation from those guys that you had in your previous platoon? So like you get back from deployment with 1-7, and then where's the time frame? Like you go on post deployment leave and you come back and you're like, hey Bennett, you're going to fucking third LAR. Like how?
exactly. No,
Yeah,
that's exactly. So we get back in November, and by January, I'm in third LAR because
Jesus, dude.
we
Yeah,
deploy in March from third LAR to Japan. So
yeah.
I
I
mean,
think
yeah.
that's so like what was that? How did
No,
that
I
feel for
mean
you?
that was horrible. That was it was horrible. None of them, nobody in third LAR was my boys. My boys were back over with 1-7, right? And I remember getting off from LAR when we were still in 29 Palms and leaving there, leaving and going over to 1-7's barracks and just hanging out there for the rest of the night because those were my boys. So, I mean, it was hard because I didn't have anybody to relate to in LAR. I didn't have anybody that understood the struggles that I was going with. I missed all of them, and yeah, I felt alone, but I was still surrounded by people, but I just didn't have that brotherhood that I did, you know.
Okay. Well, so like you go to Japan and you were getting into like how you really like had felt alone when you were there. Obviously you're in a platoon and you've got guys around you, but nobody that you can connect with. So that being like right after you just get back from this kinetic combat deployment, like what are you doing to, like alleviate a lot of those stressors and coping with the shit that you're
While I'm in
going through?
Japan,
Yes,
Guys,
yes.
oh
put a pause
Oh
on it
yeah.
real quick. We gotta open a new window. So I'm gonna end
Okay,
this
so we'll
and
hold that. We'll hold that with
yep.
dealing with the shit in Japan. So let's leave, and then
Okay, I'll shoot
Doc,
it
I'll
over to
I'll
you.
send
So
you.
stand by.
Yep. You hear us, Doc? You're good.
Three,
yeah, I can hear you.
two, good. So something I wanted to get in there before you address what you guys were just talking about. I've never really I never really voiced that. When you go from unit to unit after pumping out and you're not around the guys that you used to being around, I feel like you're not cognizant of what's about to happen. You don't really realize that being separated from these individuals that you were just with in these, highly kinetic situations, how much it's going to mean to you. Cause as bros, as dudes, as alphas, if you will, we kind of put up a front a little bit, you know what I mean? And I don't know if we don't communicate that or verbalize that, but I don't. I know me personally, I didn't make it known, but when that situation, what you just described, happened to me, it really affected me. It was. I don't know if it was I didn't know if I could trust anyone around me, or I don't know, just being ripped away from those individuals that I had just been in these crazy situations with was definitely something that I don't know really affected me for sure. I don't
No,
know.
it was that's to me that's one of the biggest things that I can look back on and know that, affected a lot to come in the future, right? If I think that if I had time to really heal and deal with some issues and do it with the people that I, experienced the trauma with, I think
Definitely.
I would have been in a much better place. But instead, I was kind of thrown into, a new unit, didn't know anybody, didn't like anybody. They all were, they couldn't relate.
Yep.
I had, and, drank a lot
Yeah, I hear you completely, dude.
and shit. So,
Yeah,
right.
for sure.
Yeah.
But what was the question again? We were just talking about getting to Japan, I believe.
Well, it was just how did you cope with that? Like one, the separation, and two, like dealing with the stressors from the trauma, or
No,
just
I didn't
yeah.
deal with it, and that's the biggest thing is I didn't even know it was happening. I think that's the other thing, or
Damn, you just said it
you
right
know,
there, dude. You
yeah,
didn't know what was happening. That was the thing with me, dude. I didn't. We all heard about PTSD, but I don't think I could put just a name onto what I was going through.
yeah,
I was
it
going through it, and I didn't realize I was going through it. You
exactly.
put that perfectly. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't know. Um, it was just a new normal or something, right?
Definitely.
So yeah, I didn't deal with it. I didn't think I had a problem, honestly.
So you not thinking that you had a problem? Did you have like what was going on with your relationships back home? Like family, girlfriend, you having kids. Like, how were they perceiving?
So while I was in Japan, my son's mom was pregnant. So that whole pregnancy I was in Japan for, which kind of, I was kind of blessed for that. But yeah, what was the question? Shit.
No, would you smoke?
My
Would you
bad,
smoke?
bro.
Would you
I
smoke that
did
blunt
during that
before?
break. Exactly.
Yeah.
My
No,
bad.
that's no.
Had to shake
How
up them
like
nerves.
yeah, seeing that the like was your family how did what you were going through affect your relationships with the people around you, like being your family, your kid's mom, even some of the
The
dudes that
the
you
the
were.
biggest the biggest relationships in my life at the time were definitely my son's mom. She was my wife at the time. And we grew so distant. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm in Japan,
definitely.
and I think we talked more while I was in Afghanistan than we did when I was in Japan.
Yep.
Even though I had so much more access to communication while I was in Japan, and
It's
she's
crazy how that
pregnant,
happens.
I would make up excuses to not talk to her.
Yep.
So, that they just we distant, super distant, and that
And
was the closest person that I had was her, and I'm distant from, so.
and I feel like that's something that you see in a lot of relationships.
Definitely.
People don't bring that to light. I mean, you always hear like, oh, military relationships never work out. You're always telling some young kid not to get married or whatever. And I think that there's a reason why a lot of people say that is because of that exact point right
Yeah.
there. You're separated for a long period of time. You're not in, I don't know, you're and the shit that you're going through too. Like they do not understand that, especially if they're not living with you and like experiencing the
Yeah, definitely.
lifestyle and they're back home with their family. They're like, well, why aren't you talking to me? Like you don't understand, you're in the field and you're out there doing this stuff, and then it creates a rift, and people just run with the it. So do you feel that being distant from her or from the things that you had experienced in combat, or was it just like all that rolled into one, how that affected your relationships?
It was all of it rolled into one. I mean, like I knew I was distant, and I knew I didn't really want to interact with her or anybody else, but I wouldn't be like it's because of, any reason. It was more just, I'm dealing with shit,
Yeah,
but I don't know I'm dealing with shit, and I'm trying to, fix something that I don't even know is broken.
I feel.
And the last thing I want to do is, talk to her every day.
I feel like
Yeah,
I feel like people close to you, especially females, they tend to take it personal.
Yeah.
That you're not. I don't know. They want to know everything you're going through. They want to. They. I guess it's because they want to help you. I mean, but I don't know. Me personally, it's so hard to just articulate that to someone like that. To really just, I don't know, put words to the things that you went through so they can understand. It's
No,
really
it's hard. It's impossible almost, right?
for sure.
I
so
mean,
you did you guys have the kid? I forget if you guys had you when you got back from Japan, did you have
I
the
got back.
baby?
Yeah, no, I got back. And I actually convinced them to let me leave early Japan to get back for the birth of the son, even though he wasn't due until December. I got to come back in October,
You're
Nice.
like,
which
yeah,
because I just
get
need to
me
leave.
out of here.
It really was. I was like, dude, you guys, I lost my mind in Japan a little bit. Shit,
Well,
dude.
dude, when you and I first started like really hanging out, like what was the only thing that we were doing? We were just getting fucked up. It was like
Yeah,
when we
we,
met, there was only I think four guys in the entire company that some staff NCOs had deployed, but I think there was
yeah,
four guys in the entire company that had
yeah.
deployed
We just
to combat,
yeah.
Can I
and
put something in here real quick? So how, I mean, maybe you guys don't want to talk about this, but I'm trying to be one with this. How do you think, I don't know, alcohol and other things go with going through something like that? Because I know I was a heavy, heavy drinker at that point,
No, I
and
think I don't drink at all anymore. I don't drink at all. And I think that
smart.
that's it's there's nothing good about it.
I
And I've
know.
learned that. So
Is it because it amplifies it, you think, or because at the time you think you're doing it to soften it or to
yeah,
numb yourself a little bit, but it tends to just make it so much worse.
I think addiction in general
It
is
does.
something that you're prone to with dealing with trauma and just PTSD, right? So anything that is addictive can be like severely damaging. And
For
I think
sure.
that's a lot of the times when you look at the big, the people that are going through it the worst. I think a lot of the times they have an addiction to
Definitely.
something,
For sure. Be
you know.
real. You know what I mean?
So
I feel like this is something that people tiptoe around so much
I
because there's so much stigma that comes around it. There's so much judgment that comes
I
around
think
it.
I think it goes hand in hand, hand in hand.
For sure.
Yeah,
Well
that's
put.
definitely one thing, like with you know, did you upon getting out, I mean, I guess like you went to Japan, you got back, like your time's coming to an end. You got out in
No, so
2016, right?
it's 2016. So I get back from Japan, and then they send me to Fort Belvoir to an
Oh,
army
I was there as
hospital.
well.
Oh shit,
Yep.
yeah. So I thought I lost my mind in Japan, working at the army hospital, back at Shore Command, living with my wife at the time and my newborn son, while still dealing with none of my issues. Dude, I
Still
lost my
dealing with
shit.
none of my issues.
Yeah,
Well put.
I, I I lost my shit and at Belvoir, so I got medically retired. I got yeah, medically retired from Belvoir. You know, I think a lot of those issues were coming up at that point. I'd never lived with my son's mom up until this point of our marriage because I was deployed the whole time. So it's the first time of us living together, and all of these issues are just screaming, man.
Do you
Um,
do you think I don't know. Do you think the military could do better at I don't want to say addressing, but making you aware of these things? Because think about it, dude. I had no fucking idea that I was going through this at the time.
no, I don't know. I think they could try. I think it's something that I think you kind of said it earlier, to be honest, that alpha mentality. And I'm not saying that I'm necessarily like have an alpha mentality, but
Of course you do,
I didn't think that I was affected with PTSD. I thought I escaped it. I was like,
Yeah.
it didn't really have, nobody died.
I
You
feel
know
like
what I
that's
mean?
not something you can tough out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I thought I could. I'm right in the same boat with you, bro. It's something that you think you can just beast out and be mentally strong enough
Yeah.
to not let it affect you, but
Or,
you can't
or
choose those things.
even like, I didn't think it had affected me.
Yeah, I
I
hear
it
you.
was like, no, I don't know. But all of the symptoms or the signs were so prevalent, and I was just blind to them, right? Um, I mean, things that just, excuse me, like irritability and not sleeping, and I mean, being on edge, anxious,
Yep.
Yeah, that
everything.
hypervigilancy, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all of it was just constant, and there I am thinking everything's fine, and like clearly it wasn't. My wife at the time was screaming for me to get help, and man, so I eventually did, right? I eventually did because deep down, I think everybody knows that they do have issues. So there comes a point where like you start really knowing that this shit ain't right,
Yep.
and it starts getting like more prevalent. You're like, dude, all right, now something is wrong with me, and then you kind of hold on to this like victimhood about it, and that makes it worse. Then you're like using it as an excuse. I punched a hole in there's a door right there. I punched a hole in it one day, right? And I remember justifying it in my head of
Yep.
like, dude, I'm fucked up. I have PTSD.
I'm
And
a
there,
habitual a hole puncher and
yeah,
things as well.
I'm
Yeah.
heading over to fucking Lowe's to buy a door that costs $100 that I have to take 2 hours to put on because I don't know how to put on fucking doors, and I'm pissed about that. And I'm like, I'm an idiot. And it's just that realization of like,
I gotta
Crazy
do
when
I'm
you
a
something.
grown ass man, bro. Like
crazy
I
when you
should,
start unpacking these things and
yeah,
really like realizing, putting a name to something like, oh shit, this is what's happening, and you start understanding it. I
yeah,
think that's the first couple steps of dealing with it
yeah.
is really talking about it and
Eh,
understanding them.
eh,
But
I think for me, so I ended up going inpatient at one point as well, and I went inpatient substance abuse, and
yep,
I even spent a little bit of time on inpatient psych at Fort Belvoir.
been there as well, my
Um,
friend.
yeah, so I mean, I went through some really dark times for sure. But I think that the biggest thing that I can think of that really got me out of it was just leaving behind. I think it was General Mattis that said like it's not post-traumatic stress disorder, but it's like just post-traumatic stress,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
It's not a
Yep.
disorder. We're not victims of anything. And leaving that behind of just knowing that like I'm not, that they, like nothing's holding me back from shit, right? Um, that's kind of what helped me set me on the track of like accepting a lot of the shit that happens. Um,
If
which
I if I'm being real with you right now, dude, I'm about to go into a program tomorrow, PTSD program, an inpatient program. And if you don't mind me asking you, dude, I don't know, talk to me about the bright side, about the upside of it, because I'm over here in my head like bugging out about it, dude. Like I don't know if I obviously I don't want to do it, but I'm at the point where it's something that needs to be done, and I don't know. I mean, I'm at the beginning stages of it. You know what I mean? So,
yeah,
and keep in mind I've done it before, but it's I don't know. You clearly have been through it, and you're on the upswing of it. I mean, I know it's a day-to-day battle. Don't get me wrong, but
yeah.
talk to me a little bit about that.
So I mean, you said you've done it before, like like you're inpatient,
Yep.
residential.
Yep.
So they're waking you up, kind of stuff, going to the gym.
Yep.
So I like to. These are the benefits to me of what kind of stuck through was when I checked into this. I think I was like 140 pounds, skinny, not really eating, drinking, um, not healthy in any way, not working out, and just them putting me on a schedule again, eating breakfast, eating lunch, eating dinner,
It's a great
right?
point. Great point.
And taking me to the gym. Like those things really kind of helped me get out of that depressive state I was in. And kind of going back to that victim thing is like a lot of the times you're stuck in that and it's winning. It's keeping you down. It's keeping you from not eating. It's keeping you from not, it's keeping you in fucking bed, keeping you inside of the house, and just being able to step outside of that. And if it takes them kind of helping you start that process of doing shit, because that's really all it takes a lot of the times, stepping outside of your comfort zone a little bit by a little bit. um I mean, that's kind of what started it for me.
Yeah,
But
and it's like
it
you look at
wasn't
that.
immediate. It wasn't immediate because even then it took me years to really figure it out after dealing with a lot of it, of looking back and realizing all of those little steps that I had started taking to get to where I'm at. Um
And you don't think about it too in the moment. It's like somebody would say, like, oh, you're not eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you're just drinking and you're not sleeping. And like they don't understand that these basic things, like there's no care to do them. Like you're stuck in this place where, well, I guess I'm here now, like poor me. I'm not gonna try to better myself. I'm just gonna keep making
no,
it worse.
exactly.
So
Like and
and
I know I should eat food, but instead I'm not. Like,
Yeah.
why? Why is it? Because it's fucking winning.
Dude, and
And
honestly, it makes me feel really good that, I mean, just being able to talk about this with you guys, because, I mean, I think you both know when you get stuck in that place, it's very lonely. And it's not that you don't have people to talk to. I don't know if it's that you don't want to put yourself out there, but I don't know. I think it's something that we all have being, I keep going back to this alphas, is we feel like we should be able to fix ourselves.
the
And
the
we feel like,
ego,
yeah.
right?
Is that ego? Is that what that is right there?
It's
Yeah,
ego, your ego. And I mean, that's not something that I think a lot of people are. It's probably the hardest thing to get over
definitely.
is being able to say like the shit ain't right. I'm gonna go inpatient.
Because who wants to ever admit that?
No,
No one
exactly.
does.
But the more people that do, the less of a stigma it is.
Definitely.
And
yeah,
and and
and
and it's a real thing that can really benefit like a lot of fucking people.
For sure.
and
So
just hearing like, and I'm like, I love that you're able to hit on this stuff because just if somebody were to hear something like this, or they got showed like, hey, I think you should listen to this message, and it's more than one person being able to admit where they're wrong or what they have an issue with and going to get help. And I think that if somebody's dealing with some hardcore stuff that they don't know where to go to, there's plenty of programs out there, there's plenty of people out there, and there's things that you can do to prevent you from, like,
Still something that, so not to interrupt you, bro. I'm sorry. But I think something that could really help that I've noticed about going through these programs is the right people in the right positions. It plays a huge part. I've dealt with talking to a lot of people in a lot of groups, and majority of the time it's not me talking to someone like this right here, someone that's walked that road, that's been there, that understands that can pick up on. So I'm going to tell you guys something that happened to me recently that, I mean, I'm kind of nervous about talking about, but fuck it, I know you guys will be able to understand me. So I was in one of these inpatient groups, and I was in one of these places where you're supposed to be uh okay to talk about your shit. And clearly something that I noticed being there was it was a little bit understaffed, and it definitely probably wasn't, I mean, it was VA approved and VA recommended, but it clearly was just not something for combat vet. And I put out a story about something that I went through when I, like one of my first deployments, and coming back, I mentioned that, you know, I contemplated suicide. It was a real thing. It's something that I thought about, and I made it clear this was in the past. I made it clear that this was something that, you know, I had worked on and I had built back up from, and it wasn't presently how I felt. But that person decided to call an ambulance and section me. And they forced me into an ambulance, strapped me to a bed. And keep in mind, I'm mildly freaking out at this point because I don't like being strapped to
No,
anything or
fuck
anyone
no,
telling me
dude.
what to do. And keep in mind, I'm articulating myself perfectly. I'm not being combative. I'm telling them, hey guys, listen, I'm not thinking about killing myself right now. I'm not, none of this is presently what I'm going through. And no one would listen, man. I've never felt that before. It was past the point of them worrying about me and more of them trying to cover their ass legally. I feel like we've become a very litigious community and a very just concerned about covering ourselves with these things that we don't really listen to the individual. And keep in mind, I got brought to a hospital. Within the first 5 minutes of getting to this hospital and me talking to the doctor, they explained to me they're going to forcibly take blood and urine from me, and they will not wait 10 minutes for my representation to get there. And I'm bugging out at this point. I'm they had to corner me in the ER and pile on top of me with their security because I wouldn't let them take blood and urine from me. I thought it was ridiculous. I thought this was absolutely absurd. And then they shot me up full of ketamine and put me into a mild comatose state. I am far more fucked up than I was when I went in there because of that.
That's
And
crazy.
this is me just feeling comfortable to talk about my shit and trusting a medical individual, a professional to try and help me. You goad me into telling a story where I'm safe, and then you section me and do that. What is the process of thinking there? Like what?
And no
Go ahead.
matter, as soon as they section you or call no matter what you say at that point,
Yeah,
I
you
feel
got to.
like,
Yeah.
but I mean, you're trying your best to communicate to them like, no, I'm not a threat to myself. But like at that point, there's not much you can say because they're putting you in the ambulance, strapping you down because in their mind they're covering their ass and they have to help you.
Yeah, that's not
Like,
helping you. That's just covering their ass to make sure
Exactly.
nothing happens and it falls
you
Exactly.
on
know,
them.
Exactly. I don't know. I think
yeah.
talking about this stuff, hopefully a medical professional can hear it and understand the power that they wield doing something like that and what you can do to an individual. And my point exactly is we need to understand the military community better. We need to understand what our guys have went through, and we need to understand what helps. And this right here, us talking about it like we're talking about right now, is the thing that has helped me the most out of all of the shit that's, you know, I've done. It's just talking about it with guys that can actually hear me. And Matt, I don't know you at all, but I want to thank you for coming on today and just, putting your stories out there a little bit so we can just have these conversations, man. I know it's not easy to do. I know it's something that I don't know. You really got to pull it out of us, man. You got to really, like, it's not something you really want to put out there. No one likes talking about the fucking shit that's rattling around in the basement. You know what I mean? But
Well, I
um,
mean, I'm glad that I've had opportunities to unpack my shit because if I was an individual that was carrying on to some of the shit and just not having an avenue to really unpack it, like that's, unpack your shit, get rid of it because that shit's weighing you
yeah,
down. And
I feel like when
I
you
like
bury it,
that.
yeah, when you bury
Yeah.
it and you don't, it kind of just
it's coming
comes
up.
to, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and that's like when that shit builds up and you don't have an outlet and people to feel comfortable talking to about it. Like that's, to me, I feel like when you're unheard, you're misunderstood, and then you add meds on top of it, or self-medicating with drugs or alcohol, like there's a cocktail for disaster,
For
and I
sure.
feel like that's what leads to
Bigger
veteran
issues.
suicide.
For
Like that,
You're
and
right. You're right.
like that's definitely something that has to be brought to light, and like what can we do as a community, as friends, as brothers, as the people that care about these individuals? Um, how do we make them feel like one again? How do we bring back people to like I know there's nonprofits out there that immerse them in environments like that and get people reconnected and everything, but we still have friends of ours and our brothers that are making that decision to take their own life, and it's
I think it
the
really
thing that
starts
they
with making
don't.
everybody aware, bro. Just like we're doing right now, just putting it out there, just actually make it. Because I mean, we're talking about it right now, like it's like commonly known and people should know it, but it's not. Like people don't. I mean, I don't know, understand why, because there's a lot of people talking about it, but I don't know. I don't know if it's people just don't want to listen or they're choosing not to, or I don't know what it is, man. But
I
I
mean, well,
think
we know that we've been affected by it. I mean, it's unfortunate. Like Matt, do you have any? I'm sure that yeah, obviously you do. That you'd like to talk to about that, or things that you think that we can change to make that situation better.
I think a lot of people don't do anything because they don't know what to do, right? There's, I think a lot of the stuff they try to implement it makes sense, some of it, or it's with good intention, but ultimately, I think it just comes down to what we're doing and just having conversations, reaching out to people that have demons and that struggle, right? And keeping those relationships alive because like you guys have said, nobody gets what we get. Nobody understands us but us. So the more that you're able to talk about it and just be with like-minded people, I think the better place you are.
definitely
It's when you're alone that's the darkness, right? Or when you feel alone at least. So
yeah,
just not feeling alone, I mean, it's
for
probably the
sure.
best medicine there is a lot of the time.
Do you think that there's any things that like specifically helped you? Like obviously, like doing some therapy and everything, and going to some of these programs, but outside of that, like family members, maybe like some books, or do you go to are you spiritual, religious, like what things have you looked to um to continue the
Time,
upkeep today?
time. It's always a battle. It's always a battle. It's never. It's not like it's. I think every day is a battle, but the more time that goes and the more at peace you can be with certain things, the easier it gets, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I look back and I look back on a lot of good times with my military. I look back on a lot of the good memories that I have with the people that I served with. Even in country, I can remember experiences, or at least the emotion I can
it's crazy
remember.
that it can be both.
Yeah,
You know
like
what I mean?
there was definitely a point where when I would think of deployment in Afghanistan, it was felt with negative emotions. I could feel my heart start beating faster, and I instantly would remember these images that were traumatic. But I think the more at peace I am with it, and the longer time goes, and the more I'm able to talk about these things, um, those emotions now, it's more like the first firefight that I had, it's still a heart beating moment, but it isn't filled with the fear and the trauma that it used to be. It's
Sure.
definitely more, you know, I miss I miss a lot of it at this point, but I
Yeah.
always kind of did. I mean, even looking back at the bad times, I missed it. So,
Well,
but
hearing you say that, then I would go ahead and assume that if I asked you if you were satisfied with your service, that would be a yes.
I mean, yeah, to an extent, I feel like I gave them enough for sure. They're cool. Like,
For sure.
yeah,
But
Would you do it again?
yeah,
fuck yeah.
yeah.
But hey, guys, we got to wrap this up. We're coming in on an hour here.
Awesome.
Matt, once again,
No,
great
I
meeting
appreciate
you.
it, man. Yeah, you too. I
Thanks.
I enjoyed it. So
Definitely.
All
Thanks
right,
for
Doc.
coming on. Love
Doc,
to.
I got one last question for you. Okay. So if you could use one word to describe the GWAT, what would that be?
A shit show. It was a shit
Nice.
show.
Nice, for sure. How could
All
it not
right.
be?
Well, hey Matt, thank you
I
for coming
appreciate
on
it.
and giving us your firsthand accounts of like your experiences and everything. I love that you shared that. I miss you, man.
I
I
miss
love
you too,
you,
bro.
and I hope that if you ever need anything, you call. And when I get to the East Coast, I'm gonna come snuggle with you.
Of course, man. I appreciate it.
All right.
All right,
Hard
guys.
to kill. Closing out. Have a good night, guys.
Well,